Welcome to the Orgasmic Lifestyle Podcast with me, Venus O'Hara. An orgasmic lifestyle is about reaching a climax in all areas of life, not just in the bedroom. Here, we dive deep with expert guests on topics like nutrition, spirituality, personal development, sexuality, and much more. Together, we'll explore lifestyle lessons to help you lead a life that's fulfilling, joyful, and unapologetically orgasmic. I'm your guide, Venus O'Hara. Welcome to episode 140 of the Orgasmic Lifestyle Podcast with Venus O'Hara. In this Beaver Moon episode, we discuss polyamory, jealousy, and trust. We speak with Dr. Joli Hamilton, who is a coach for couples who color outside the lines, specializing in polyamory, and she has researched jealousy. It's so juicy. I can't wait to share this with you. I also review season 2 of the Netflix series Nobody Wants This, and this is a rom-com where a sex podcaster starts dating a rabbi. And the episode ends with a guided meditation with affirmations for cultivating trust in relationships. But first, let me share with you some of my own experiences and perspectives on trust in relationships. I had such a fun time talking to today's guest, Dr. Joli Hamilton. Her speciality is jealousy from an academic perspective. And we also talk about polyamorous relationships. I have interviewed several people about polyamory, and it's definitely a topic that intrigues me. I have so many questions about how these dynamics work. And as a real voyeur, I'm always curious to see how people create their relationships. I'm really interested in relationship design. And I must say that this is not my preferred relationship design. But that said, I have huge admiration for anyone, any couple, who is creating the type of relationship on their own terms, not, adhering to society's expectations or even family expectations, but really creating something that feels authentic and satisfying for them. And I especially love it when I see couples who have a very kind of unconventional wedding. They're not doing stuff just to please all these old relatives that, just have to be, they think it's their day. Well, it is maybe a day of two families coming together, but people who really honor, that their partner and their relationship above everything. And that's something that I admire a lot. I'm a real romantic, and to see a couple have the bravery, if you like, or just the courage to actually create a wedding and a relationship on their own terms is something I find deeply just inspiring. And also I think it's great for other people to have role models of different types of relationships as well. And I think the more authentic you are, the more satisfied you're going to be in a relationship. My preferred relationship dynamic has to be elective monogamy. And I think a lot of people think that, monogamy is about just doing what society assumes, or you're assuming that you have to do that because that's what society says. But elective monogamy is a bit different. It's about choosing that dynamic and choosing to be with one person, going all in. And also I want the other person I'm with to be choosing monogamy and choosing me as well. I don't think we can, tell people what to do or kind of demand that people are monogamous. I think I want to be chosen. I think that's the most romantic way to have a relationship. If you're going to live a monogamous lifestyle, it's not just you have to be because I said so and society says so. I mean, I live in Spain, and what really shocked me when I first came to Spain was all of this kind of open relationships, but my partner doesn't know about it. I mean, it's a lot of don't ask, don't tell, a lot of playing away from home. And it kind of shocked me a lot because I just really believe in that cocoon that you can create with another person, or this cocoon of beautiful trust and just safety as well. And I think safety is really important for relationships, especially, more and more. The more safe you feel, the better it is for your nervous system. And also I think for sex, creating a safe container means you can kind of let go and just be, very relaxed. That's something I really find, beautiful in relationships in general, is the kind of, is the complicity that is created in a couple. Recently I made a meditation track on Insight Timer. You can check out the link in the description below if you want to hear more of my meditations. And it was about attracting aligned friendships. And someone's left me a comment saying that they liked all of the affirmations except for one. The word complicity really triggered them because I thought it was a negative thing. And I actually looked up the, official definition of complicity, and it was like being, part of a crime scene, partner in crime. But I think there's a kind of cool and positive side to it as well. I think complicity can mean, having this secret bond, something that really brings you together. That's more than love. It's just this kind of partner in crime. Yeah, we can have a great time together. We are on the same team kind of energy. A kind of unspoken bond. And I think that's the most beautiful thing you can have in a relationship. And I really want to cultivate that with one person and have that, reciprocated willingly with consent, not just because society says so. So that's something that I prefer. But I do think, I'm becoming more and more aware of my own personal need for safety. And that doesn't have to be always, safety. People can, want safety and have different relational dynamics. What's really important is the communication and honesty and transparency. And I think sometimes, to have, trust and safety, it's really important to have openness as well. And something that I've been thinking about a lot, because I've actually created the affirmations for this episode, is about cultivating trust in a relationship. And I've been thinking about trust a lot. And I'm someone who actually, they say trust is earned, but I'm someone who actually gives my trust. And then if it's taken away, with a betrayal, then it's just gone. And I have a friend who's, we've both had an incident with a friend and an ex-friend, I should say, and she said something to me. You get one chance, and I'm kind of like that too. If someone betrays my trust, it's very, very difficult to rebuild that trust once it's gone. But something that helps me to feel trust is openness. I love vulnerability, and I don't think perfection is the goal. When people, are open about their struggles, their emotions, and just vulnerability in general, I find that is a great way to be able to cultivate trust and connection. Vulnerability is so underrated. I find vulnerability very, very, very sexy. But something I don't like is something that creates that kind of alarming kind of triggers for me is inconsistency and secrecy. I think that doesn't really inspire trust if you're constantly on edge, pull, push dynamics, etc. And especially if you are going to be in an open relationship, you have to have a sense of safety and openness and trust. It's very, very, very important, especially, if you are having sex with different people and your partner is too. It's very important to maintain that physical and safety, health, etc. If you are fluid bonded with your partner, and maybe you are having sex with other people and making sure you're protected, etc. But it's not just about physical risk. There are lots of emotional risks as well. So for me, it's a bit of an alarm bell when people don't really share how they're feeling, what they're doing. It's not to kind of police people, but I think it's nice to just be open and have that sense of safety. I think it's so, so, so important, and it's becoming more and more important to me now. But anyway, let's talk more with Dr. Joli Hamilton. It's a fascinating discussion, and she has really taken a deep dive into the topic of jealousy, which is super juicy. So let's check it out. What if your pleasure was the portal to your power? My new book, Orgasmic Manifestation, Transform Your Life with Your Sexual Energy by Venus O'Hara, is your guide to using desire as a tool for abundance, purpose, and deep self-connection. Your orgasm is more than a moment. It's a message, a manifestation, a mirror of your limitless potential. Available now on Amazon. Link in the show notes below. Now it's time for this episode's interview. We speak with Dr. Joli Hamilton, who is a coach for couples who colour outside the lines. Joli Hamilton, welcome to the Orgasmic Lifestyle podcast, where every day is a climax. It's such a pleasure to have you here.
Every day's a climax. That's a great. I'll take it. Yes, let's have that.
Amazing. So the premise of this podcast is to reach a climax in all areas of life. And obviously, relationships is a very important part of life that sometimes is overlooked. And for those who are unfamiliar with your work, could you tell us what you do?
Yeah, so I am a Jungian and archetypal psychologist. That's my big title. I'm also an ASEX certified sexuality educator, but most of what I do these days is help people who are transitioning from a monogamous paradigm to something new, often polyamory, relationship anarchy, something along those lines, and discovering what does it mean to leave behind monogamy? What exactly would that look like? And in that work, of course, that also brings me in close contact with my academic area of interest, which is jealousy. I'm a jealousy researcher.
That's so interesting. So what inspired you to follow this path? I guess you get asked that a lot.
Yeah. Well, I jumped out of the monogamous airplane with no parachute 16
Mhm.
years ago and made every mistake I possibly could. And my way of figuring out what to do, because I had made quite a disaster of my life, was to go back to school. I went back to school. I got 4 psychology degrees and really dove into this as a primary area of interest as I was studying, because as we do paradigm shifting, right? Like we're changing everything about our like basis, what we think the world is about. And I just found it fascinating. And it really helped me know myself better over time. And that was an unexpected side benefit. People usually think that non-monogamy is just about sex. And I mean, don't get me wrong, the sex is awesome, but it's also about coming into a deeper understanding of myself. So that's what led me to stay in the gig.
Okay, so one thing is choosing it for your, personal life, but one then taking it to a professional level. I mean, how did that happen?
Yeah, so for me, as I was learning my way out of it, I was constantly being asked questions about, so how was I handling jealousy? As I started studying jealousy specifically, a lot of people made the assumption that, okay, so you're non-monogamous and you study jealousy, so you must just not be jealous. You must be really
Mhm.
fascinated by it because you're not jealous, and that's why you can do non-monogamy. But it's actually just the opposite. I still experience jealousy, and I found that to be a fascinating conundrum that most of us were finding ourselves in, that we can be experiencing really big emotional tumult and still want to actually participate in these less conventional relationship structures. So that's what had me dive into the work as my long-term professional route. And also I'm a teacher at heart. Like
Okay.
I love teaching. So I shifted from private work where I could help people one to one. I shifted about 95% of my practice into teaching because I really believe that most of us need more skills in our relating. It's not
Um,
just about needing therapy. It's also about how do I actually do, like, I don't know what to do. So
mhm.
yeah, I'm an educator. That's what I do first.
So you've brought your passion into your education and into your work. But when I was a student, I was a waitress, and I would work anywhere except for pizza restaurants because I love pizza. I didn't want to ruin it. Has this happened? Does that happen for you, or you don't know the line where work and
Yeah. Oh,
life is?
sure. Sure.
Uh,
I mean, it is, I have at times said I'm practically undateable at this point because in my local area I'm pretty well known, and it does make for an interesting conversation starter when people just jump in and they're like, okay, so you're an expert. How do we have this conversation? What does that really mean to be an expert? Because in my own love life, I'm still just living it. But
mhm,
honestly, I did that whole route of making my passion my profession a long time ago. My
mhm,
first college degree back when I was just a kid is actually in fashion design.
uh-huh.
And I spent 3 years in design and then got the hell out because it ruined my love of the art.
Okay.
So this is actually perfect for me because I never get tired of the messiness of
Mhm.
relationships. It like that's the thing that gives me a lot of life. I feel a lot of life force around it.
So I'm going to ask you about that in more depth, but something you mentioned earlier, I would like to know what it is. Relationship anarchy, what is that? I've never heard
Yeah.
of,
So
I think I've
relationship
heard of it, but I don't really know what it means.
Yeah, relationship anarchy is a broad term, right? It's a term that covers the idea of building each relationship based on the needs of the relationship. So rather than having a proscripted path for relationships, you're really custom building every relationship. But there's also the word anarchy, right? It's there for a reason. It's because there is a political basis, right? It's about moving away from hierarchies. And so when I'm working with clients, I don't actually have a preference for relationship style. If my clients decide that monogamy is right for them, great. I will celebrate that. Let's do that consciously. If they decide polyamory, the desire for having multiple loving continual relationships, if that's the right path for them, awesome. Relationship anarchy is another format, and for some people it's just the right fit because it really centers the idea that they're custom crafting their relationships based on moving away from hierarchy. But that doesn't actually tell you how many people are going to be in the relationship. So a lot of people hear relationship anarchy and they think chaos, but really it's about moving away from hierarchy as a defining feature. And I think each person really has to find for themselves what's the right fit for me? What structure, what path really suits my soul's calling? And that's what I'm in this for. Like I got into the non-monogamy paradigm shift because I find it illuminates for many people all of the shadows, all of the areas that they hadn't wanted to look before. And as a Jungian psychologist, that is of high interest to me. So, relationship anarchy for some people is a way to find out, oh, what I wanted was to move away from hierarchy. Maybe they'll only have one partner, maybe they'll have 10, but they know that that's their central premise.
So when you say hierarchy, are you talking about one partner having more power than the other?
Talking
Really?
about power and power over, like think about in
Mm,
if you're in a monogamous relationship, there are often so many power differentials that go unnamed,
mm,
unspoken, right? And so first off, we need to get conscious of where are we holding power and where are we not talking about the power that we hold.
mm,
But then now add more partners to the mix. Let's say an established couple decides we're going to open up. And they open up, and now each of them has one or two other people that they're dating. It is the sort of standard issue that like we place a lot of power and emphasis on the established couplehood. And
mm.
so questioning hierarchy also leads us to question, so does the established couplehood, does that get privileged and prioritized over new partnerships? And for some people, the answer is yes. For some people, they're
Mm.
absolutely like, yep, that is my intention. My intention is to prioritize and privilege my established partnership. But for many people, they also think into this, like they feel their way into it and they're like, wow, that actually doesn't align with my values. I want everyone that I'm relating to feel like they are taken seriously. And so that makes us need to really question, am I even incidentally or accidentally exercising power over other people because of a relationship? Now, it is important here to say we all have priorities. Like
Mm.
everybody has priorities. And so in an established relationship, I may have priorities and obligations that limit my availability. Like, for instance, I own a house with another person. And so, therefore, my householding decisions, I can't, for instance, have another partner move in without at least consulting with my established partnership because we actually share this mortgage and we pay the bills here. And so, there is a level of, yep, I need to consult. But there's also it's different when you step away from that as the default. Oh,
Mm.
I would never allow myself to contemplate anything that would prioritize another partner. And it gets
Mm.
pretty messy pretty
Mm.
fast, right? When we start to realize, oh, I was using my couplehood to actually like to sort of make decisions for me and instead to return those decision making privileges and powers to each individual and say, yeah, you are going to have some prioritization and you're going to have to own that each
Mm.
step of the way, own that for yourself. It gets complicated.
I can imagine, even with just two people, it gets complicated. But something
It
you mentioned
does.
about power, it makes me think of, in every relationship, every relationship is unique. But I think that sometimes there tends to be one person more into it than the other. That can always change through phases. But I was talking to a gay friend, actually, a male friend, and he said in straight relationships, that it's always better for the man to be more into the woman. And I kind of, that sounds like a massive generalization, but I kind of agree. It's like,
I
and
mean,
it's just not, maybe
I've
not a
heard
popular thing to say, but like when I think of power, I think, yeah, the next guy's got to be way more into me than I'm into him.
I've heard more than a few hot take TikToks saying exactly that. And I
Wow.
mean, I can't say that I disagree in a cis het mononormative relationship
Mm,
where there is already going to be this massive power differential
mm,
of man versus woman, and often one that is not talked about. Yeah, having a golden retriever husband sounds like a good idea.
mm,
I think that that does all come into question when we're talking about queering our relationships. And that's true.
mm,
I happen to be married to a man, but he's
mm,
bi and so am I. And we're
mm,
polyamorous. And I notice that there is a like each way that we queer our relationship also changes how power is held and how we talk about power. Um, so, I mean, yeah, we can't avoid these conversations about power. That's also something that comes as a surprise to a lot of people when they're opening up is, oh, there are power dynamics everywhere. And I didn't realize it. Another place they really commonly come up is a cishet mononormative man, like raised in that culture, often will be the person who's like, I want to open up.
mm,
And they open up and they find out, oh, actually, my wife gets a lot more hits on dating
mm,
apps. My wife gets a lot more easy access to dating. That comes as a big shock. And it is a power shift. All of a sudden, oh, somebody has more access. Access translates into a sense of power and empowerment.
mm.
That role reversal can be stark.
Yeah, I can imagine some people don't really realize the power they have sometimes. I mean, I think I've been
Absolutely.
going through something that I didn't realize how powerful I was, which is kind of cool. But it's sometimes we need to take a check and just kind of have some self-awareness about the power we do have, I guess. Very
Absolutely.
hard.
Absolutely.
Mm.
And sometimes the way that we will become aware of that is by experiencing a loss of it, right? Like
Yeah, yeah.
we confront how, oh, that was entitlement, that was privilege, and I didn't realize I had it until it was
Mm,
gone. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, right? Like
mm,
as we shift our perspective and open up to new experiences, recognizing unearned power and unearned privilege can also make us not just a better partner, but a better human. We can start
mm.
relating in the world differently.
Yeah, honestly, I think it's something that I just when you're talking, it just reminds me of I was in this salsa dancing thing last week, or bachata and salsa, and I just love how it's very, traditional gender roles. Where as a woman, it's a massive privilege. Like you don't have to do anything; you just have to be a woman and be there, and then the men are going to come and ask you to dance.
Yep.
I saw a guy ask a girl to dance, and she just looked at him like, "Who are you? How dare you?" And the guy was like, "Oh my God." And I
Oh,
think I just think this rejection is kind of nice that someone asks you to dance. It's
yeah.
sometimes we take that for granted. 'Cause I think I had a phase of my life where I was into women about 10 years ago for about 3 years, and I just the privilege of not having to make a first move. I mean, that was that's a big thing where in
Oh,
the
yeah.
in the straight world, it's just wait. Even if you go on a dating website, just wait. The messages will come. You don't have to do anything. Whereas in the lesbian world, it was like everyone's always glares and no one's doing anything. Then the next day comes and you're all frustrated. Then you're on the apps because nothing happened the night before.
Right. Yeah. There's such a shift in like, oh, someone's going to have to take ownership here. I'm going to have to
Yeah.
own my own desire. I'm going to have to lean into taking action and being in touch with my actual wants,
Mm,
which I mean, what a great experience for anyone to have. And it
mm,
often does come as a loss of privilege. It comes as a big ouch at first, but
mm,
when I date women, it is such a great reminder for me. Every time I'm dating a woman, I'm like, right. Right. We actually get to make this up step by step every day.
mm,
It there we don't have to follow that proscripted life. And
mm,
I like the experience and the opportunity to be in touch with that.
mm,
And it's a great reminder too of how much my heterosexual connections follow a script that doesn't necessarily actually meet my needs. It's
mm.
just easy, but easy isn't necessarily good.
But talking about prescripted lives, even no matter what kind of relationship you're looking for or have, I think having role models is kind of important, and even just knowing what's possible,
Yeah.
and especially if this is a very more conventional way. I mean, have you seen anything? Maybe I don't know if this is true, but did you say a lot of people are not fully open about their relationship styles?
Yeah. The vast majority of people who are in non-monogamous relationships aren't out talking about it on podcasts, aren't necessarily talking about it at PTO meetings, or, they're not wondering, you don't know. So when we talk about the numbers of non-monogamy, 20% of people have tried it at some point in their life, consensual non-monogamy, not cheating, and 5-ish% are practicing at any one time. So that means that's the same number of people as who have like cats. Like 20% of people, that's a lot of people. We all know somebody who owns a cat, right? But we don't talk about it. And that means a couple of things. One, it can feel very isolating to feel like, oh, this is the shift I want. This is the relationship structure I want to try. And I can feel isolated. But also, yeah, we don't get to see the boring, happy polyamorists. We often see the drama. We see the flashy substance. We don't see just happily ensconced triads and quads and polycules just doing their thing. We instead tend to see drama.
So how does someone know if they're just desiring someone else because they're bored, or do they actually want to make a big relational shift? How can someone know that? Is there any
I
way?
mean, there are a lot of things to contemplate. For one thing, sometimes we're inside of a relationship, so we're in an established relationship and we want to open up. But some people are single. They're currently single, they're dating, and they're like, yeah, I think I want to love multiply, right? So those two perspectives would both be different. Ideally, anyone who's contemplating this is understanding that it's not a quick fix for any particular problem. Like non-monogamy isn't a problem solver. What it does is it shifts where you're going to spend your attention. It's a shift from, the issues and struggles of monogamy are one sort of struggle. The issues and struggles of non-monogamy are different. They're not better or worse. But they're different, and they can be significantly different. So if someone is in an established relationship, one of the questions I will ask them is, how do you like to handle relationship conflict? How do you currently make agreements with your partners? And oftentimes just those couple of questions will turn up, oh, I'm not really talking to my partner. I'm really dissatisfied with my partner. Now we can dig into, what's the dissatisfaction? What's going on here? Because if the dissatisfaction is starting because we don't talk about sex, we don't talk about intimacy, well, I have a big question, because adding a third person to this mix or more, we're going to have to talk about sex. We're going to have to talk about intimacy. If nothing else, you're going to need to start having safer sex conversations, right? So we have to cross this bridge of being able to talk about our intimacy no matter what we do. And so ideally, we would work with that puzzle first. If you currently aren't comfortable talking about intimacy, let's get comfortable talking about intimacy. Let's get comfortable doing the self-inquiry of, what are my needs and wants? And that's where most people really get kind of stuck, because the idea of adding another partner is often a bit it's a bit gossamer. It's a little like, I don't know, it's a good idea, it's a fantasy. But reality is going to be discussions and learning a lot about what works for you and what doesn't work for you. So if you're not interested in that kind of self-inquiry, this might not be the structure for you.
Wow, interesting. So let's get back into your research of jealousy. So how have you researched jealousy? Have you found anything that's just surprised you?
I mean, everything about jealousy has been surprising, except for maybe one thing, which is that it's natural and it's not going anywhere. I studied jealousy qualitatively. That means I talk to people in in-depth interviews and look for patterns amongst their experiences with jealousy.
Is
So I've
jealousy
studied
just polyamory, or all across the board?
all. So I started off studying jealousy in the polyamorous container, but then later, after I moved out of my doctoral research, my most recent published study was in jealousy as experienced by both monogamous and non-monogamous women specifically. It's it is fascinating to see how jealousy is such a confusing mess for most of us. And it starts right away. Jealousy is it's conflated with envy. It gets shoved into the shadows. Most of us also feel a lot of shame around our jealousy, or we feel like it's a necessary part of romantic relationships. So jealousy is again, it's really messy, which is part of why I enjoy it so much. But when I'm studying jealousy, one of the things that I didn't expect is that in the non-monogamous community, there is a very rich discussion, an ongoing discussion about jealousy, about how we work with jealousy and romance and jealousy and our intimacy. And in the monogamous community, that's not true. There is generally not a conversation being had about jealousy. Jealousy is instead seen as something that should either be cured, or it means that something's inherently wrong with your relationship and somebody's doing something bad. And so that means that people who are practicing monogamy can actually learn a lot about jealousy by looking at how do non-monogamous people work with jealousy, because their methods of working with jealousy work just as well in a monogamous container. And that's been fascinating and really helpful for me because I work with people across the relational spectrum.
And it can be seen as something positive as well. If like someone doesn't care, I mean, that's kind of a bit like annoying, like, like, if you're getting hit on by someone else and they just like don't care.
It is a really interesting. So the meaning behind jealousy is one of the core challenges, right? Like when we're talking about jealousy, we're talking about the emotional experience of feeling a threat to a valued relationship. That emotional experience it's made of a whole bunch of things. For some people, we get really sad. For some people, we get really anxious or angry, rageful. A lot of people will experience grief over their jealousy. It feels like a loss, even if the loss hasn't happened yet. But at core, we're experiencing some kind of threat to a valued relationship. But you're right. We have been taught through our media to see that, yeah, but there should be a little bit of jealousy. There should be some jealousy, because if there's no jealousy, then my partner doesn't care. And to be fair, yeah, when I'm experiencing jealousy, one of the things I can do is notice like, okay, well, I've identified that I care about this partnership. I care about this friendship. I care about what the loss that I could experience. That's valuable. But what people do next is often fall into one of two categories. Either they fall into massive insecurities, and now it's all about, how do I not measure up? I'm comparing myself to the other. I'm comparing myself to this perceived interrupter who I imagine is going to interfere with my relationship, or may actually be interfering with my relationship. Or into the other category, the group of people who are so angry at their partner that they get rageful, they even get violent. Jealousy begets violence for a lot of people, right? So we need to have a cultural conversation about jealousy, because it brings us to the brink. It brings us to the edge of either complete insecurity and disrepair within, or really dangerous levels of anger and hostility toward our partners. Both of these things deserve our attention.
Does it matter if the jealousy is based on facts, like, or actual paranoia? Because some people can, I have a friend whose husband was having an affair after 25 years. They got divorced, and now she finds it really hard to trust a new partner. So there's that expression,
Sure.
"Don't bleed on those who don't cut you," didn't cut you.
Yeah.
So that's the kind of her paranoia. But the new guy is really nice. So
Right.
and he's kind
Right.
of suffering because of what someone else did to her, and how much of it is actually.
Yeah.
It's all valid, of course, but I mean,
It's all valid, right? Your feelings are valid no matter what. What you do with them, though. So in that case, I mean, one of the things we have to look at is this jealousy bound? Is it rooted in data? Absolutely, it's rooted in data. Is it rooted in data about this relationship? No, but that person is looking at historically. I have been cheated on. I have been lied to, right? So they're applying their pattern detection now to a new partnership. It's really complicated because we can absolutely be looking at a situation where there is a rational basis for our jealousy. And we need to deal with that. We need to look at, what are my needs? What's not being met? Do I have agreements? Does my partner understand what I think fidelity is? Do I understand what my partner thinks fidelity is? Like, do we actually have that conversation? But then there's also the kind of jealousy that comes from our imagination. We don't need there to be a real interrupter to feel an enormous sense of jealousy, right? So if I'm looking at the jealousy triangle, myself as the jealous person, my beloved, and this perceived interrupter, I can invent that perceived interrupter out of nowhere. And so in your friend's situation here, now she's got an interesting spot to find herself in. She could make that perceived interrupter out of anything, out of sheer imagination, out of the idea like he's traveling on business right now, I'm not safe. The work we need to do to dig into that is to start noticing the jealousy, naming it, owning the fact that that jealousy is there, and getting clear on what is this? What does jealousy mean about me? Because probably there's a deeper wound statement in there that says this jealousy means I'm unsafe. This jealousy means that my partner is not actually communicating with me. I don't actually have clarity of my relationship agreements. I don't trust my partner. Those things all need to be worked on. And while a new partner, no, they can't go back and fix what happened before, but a new partner might be willing to go to counseling with you and work through the challenges of creating agreements that actually help you understand what you're getting and giving to each other. Or a new partner might be willing to be patient while you learn to regulate your nervous system, while you learn to trust again. But rebuilding trust doesn't mean not talking about jealousy, right? We need to actually start talking about it and owning it, because jealousy often inspires us to take really big actions, whether those actions are harm to another person or whether those actions are actually harm towards us because we keep cutting ourselves off from people who care about us. We need to invite ourselves into a closer relationship with jealousy, because the jealousy is really there as an indicator, a warning that something's going on. That something isn't always an actual interruption. Sometimes the call's coming from inside the house and there's just a lack of internal security. So we got to really dig through it. There's a lot to do with jealousy.
Something I've been becoming more aware of is the need for emotional safety in a relationship, because sometimes, even if it's monogamous, I mean, that's no guarantee for anything. That can be, depends on who
No.
with, of course. But and I also think that people, put on a pedestal this idea of the butterflies or something, whereas I think I read an expression years ago, or some kind of meme that said, when you're younger you want someone who's going to make your knees weak, but when you get old you want someone who's going to make your knees stable. So is that, it's so important to have that emotional safety in a relationship, and be regulated and not be just dependent on their reaction to you all the time. I'm just wondering if that could be difficult in a polyamorous situation, to feel embodied, safety.
Well, theoretically, it could, right? If we think about this as just like, oh, there's more partners and you won't and you're going to repeat the same patterns you've always had. So polyamory could be more dysregulating if you don't upskill, if you don't learn what was creating dysregulation when you had one partner. Most of us don't experience deep emotional stability and psychological safety because we have had the conversations and done the work and dialed in our communication. Instead, we rely on exclusivity equals safety. But does it? Monogamy doesn't actually provide that. I wish it did. That would be great. What a great solution. Just have monogamy and we'll automatically feel safe. Except we know that the divorce rate is around 50%. Cheating rates are just as high as they've ever been. We know that monogamy itself isn't the solution. The solution is actually co-creating really healthy, strong, psychologically safe relationships. You can do that with one person. And if you can do that with one person, you also have the skills to do that with more than one person. What we have to actually, the number one thing we have to do in polyamory is remove the idea that exclusivity automatically equals safety, and the idea that exclusivity is required for safety. Now, some people may prefer exclusivity. That's totally fine, right? If you're a person who prefers exclusivity, then monogamy that's the choice for you. But if you really like emotional and psychological safety, but you can untether that from exclusivity and allow yourself to experience the stability, let's say you might have with your friends, right? We often will have more than one really close friend. In fact, many of us, especially women, will say we have more than one best friend. We understand multiplicity. We understand that you can co-create psychological and emotional safety with multiple people. When we take that to the romantic world, we can do the same thing, but we're going to have to really learn how to know what we need and want. We're going to have to know how to repair from rupture. We're going to have to know how to make agreements that actually take multiple needs into account. So there's a lot of skill building to do this well.
Absolutely. That's really fascinating because whenever I see a documentary about polyamory, I'm clicking because and we always have this, question of like, how does it work? So, with just two people, it's already complicated. So adding more to the mix is super intriguing about how people, the logistics of it and the energy,
Yeah,
it's
the
a lot.
logistics and energy, honestly,
Yeah, it's not
I
even the
mean,
sex. But
no, I mean, I've
mm,
been non-monogamous for 16 years and I have 7 children and
wow,
I did a master's, 2 masters and a PhD during that time. Yeah,
wow. You
energy
had seven
management
children
is
in that time.
they're all adults now. They were between
Oh,
2 and
wow.
10 when I shifted from monogamy to polyamory. And yeah, energy management is real. Like
Mm,
I am not always, while I was writing my dissertation, I dated 2 people during those
mm,
2 years. That's it. That's all I had time for. I just didn't have energy for more than that. But there are lots of ways to handle our energy management. And also, some of us gain energy by having multiple relationships. Again, think about some people thrive with a large circle of friends. Some
mm,
people thrive with having one core best friend.
mm.
Yep, they're just differently oriented. They're differently situated to be in the world. Also, this changes over the phases of our life. Like my youngest child just turned 18.
Wow.
It is so wild to me to see how much more time and energy I have available for
Mm,
partnerships. Like I knew this day was coming. I knew this, my children, many of them have now graduated from college. Like we moved on to a new phase of life. Yeah, I literally have more time and energy. And I still had energy even when they were little because that was the same energy that I used for my friendships was I also used that for dating. What I didn't do was draw a hard distinction between like this is a friendship and this is a date. Instead, I was
mm,
always in this sort of figuring it out. What's happening here? Is this romantic? Is this not romantic? But it is that same energy base.
mm. But then again, if something's working, then it kind of gives you energy, I suppose.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
Mm,
I felt I was monogamous for the first 17 years of my adulthood. I was with
mm,
one partner and I didn't feel that it gave me more energy. I often felt a lot like there was an amorphous loss, like a lack there. And it
mm,
wasn't just about having more partners, it was about my own autonomy. It was about making decisions for myself. I am not a person who needs to have tons of partners around me. I just don't happen to be that way. But I do have a high drive to be the decider for myself about
mm,
whether a friendship is romantic or not, about whether I spend my Friday night going out with this person or that person. And so for people who have a really high drive for autonomy and agency, non-monogamy often feels like a more accurate fit for their needs. And honestly, that doesn't always mean you're going to be partnered multiply, right? Some of
mm,
us non-monogamous, I went through COVID with I didn't date for 14 months because I was already bubbled up with children and a nesting partner. And I was like, well, that's as many tentacles as I can have out into the world. And
mm,
there are lots of reasons why people also will go through dry spells or times when they're just like, you know what? All my energy's for me.
mm,
I'm going to date myself. I'm going to be in an energetic spend that's on me. So
mm,
it really is about freeing ourselves from the idea that it's not just jumping from monogamy where I need to or should, quote unquote, should be partnered to one person, but moving into I'm going to partner intentionally in the ways that make sense for me and feel good for me.
mm. Do you find that different people give you or meet different needs that you have, or is that?
I mean, yes, to a
Mm,
degree. I think a lot of people have fallen back on this phrase like, well, no one person can meet all your needs.
mm,
I tend to disagree. My nesting partner is a person who probably could meet all my needs if I asked him to. He has at periods of time, and it's fine. every new person, all my friends meet different needs. They bring out, what I would say is rather than meet different needs, they bring out different aspects of me. I
Mm.
feel myself differently. Like I have a close friend who, when I hang out with her, like I go dancing, I go to yoga, like I do those things because she brings that part of me out.
Mm.
I have partners who are just like they are even kinkier than I am, and they bring that aspect of me out. I wouldn't say that they meet that need so much as I get to explore because we have shared interests. I get to explore in a particular area, and that also shifts over time, right? Like
Mm.
we're all shifting and changing. I have a long-term friend who I used to have as a mom friend. So most of
Mm.
what we did was play dates. We hung out with the kids together. Now most of what we do is long, luxurious weekends away where we're just talking about philosophy and reading books and painting each other's toenails and like just it has shifted over time. That's just the nature of relationships.
Mhm.
Um, I think it's wonderful to allow our relationships to become what we want them to be and to
Mm.
co-create them with the people we're in relationship with.
I can see the appeal and beauty of both models. Not that there's just one size fits either of them, but I watched this really interesting debate, polyamory versus monogamy. It was amazing on the Ellen Fisher channel. Do you know Ellen Fisher? She's a vegan. I'm a vegan, so I watch a lot of vegan content, but she's also lifestyle. She's living in Hawaii with five
Mhm.
kids, and it's just, living on, growing her own food. It just looks, amazing, very Instagrammable
Yep.
life. But I think she's only been with her husband, so it's but they just have this beautiful. It looks beautiful. You never know what's happening behind closed doors. And they've only been with each other. They've got these five kids, and then they were comparing, contrasting with this other polyamorous couple, and it was just really interesting to see. This is obviously a massive generalization of both models. They probably could have got a different couple of the polyamory and had a
Right.
different experience or different outcome. But what was really interesting is the polyamorous couple were very much in a space of prioritizing themselves as individuals,
Hmm.
whereas the monogamous couple was, prioritizing the relationship and the family. So I think it's a
Yeah.
different way of living. And as you said, alluded to earlier, like you want to be like the protagonist of your life. That weren't your words, but I can see that that's really appealing.
Yeah.
And if you want to continue that. Hmm.
I think it's interesting though that we often we forget how unique every situation is because I am basically those two couples in my own
Mm.
life. I
Mm.
spent my first 17 years with one partner, my high school sweetheart. I'd never been with anyone
Wow.
else. I was homeschooling our kids and we live on land, growing food, doing all of those things, right?
Mm.
And then I shifted to non-monogamy. Well, I still
Mm.
homeschooled my kids. I had three more kids. I wound up like I got those ones. Somebody else birthed them. So glad for that. I was done with the birthing part. I only had to birth four of them. But I continued. I continued so many of those things. I continued to prioritize my family. I how could you not? I was
Mm.
homeschooling seven children. You have to prioritize. But I
Mm.
also started to have a partner who let me simultaneously prioritize myself, that was
Mm.
wild to me because my role shifted away from being primarily as mother to being primarily Joli.
Mm.
And motherhood became a strong aspect of who I was, but I also went back to school. I started I started investing in myself. I started working part-time. My nesting partners also took on roles, right? They started taking on different roles. We shared the load. There was a much more even split of the emotional and physical labor of running a household. And for me, that allowed me to have sort of the best of both worlds. I got to regain a sense of autonomy. And at the same
Mm.
time, I got to keep raising my children the way I wanted to. And it's been really interesting now that my kids are all grown. I recorded an episode with my third to youngest child, recorded an episode now that he's 18. He was like, "Yeah, I'll happily talk about what it was like to be in a household that's less traditional, but still centered on like, yep, we're raising children. It does
Mm.
take a lot of energy." So
Mm.
of course, it's not the same as two people who don't have the emotional responsibilities for other
Mm.
humans. Like, of
Mm.
course, that's going to change how you date and
Mm.
potentially even who you date.
Mm.
But there are a lot of people doing non monogamy in a lot of ways, and most of them don't talk about it publicly So I
Mm.
find it fascinating to see the behind the scenes and see just how many parents are doing this, just how many people who are in the family building stage are doing this. I have multiple clients right now who are pregnant with children. How many people also who are they've just finished like the hard part of raising their kids. Their kids are in their late teens, early 20s, and now they're like, "Oh, oh, we meant to get to that non-monogamy thing. Let's do it now." And they're going through a big transition in midlife to having a different relationship structure. There's no one right way to do it, but it's
Mm.
fascinating to me that people often do find this to be something that they want to at least explore and find out,
Mm.
is this for me? And it's not for everyone. And I don't think it's a better way, but the
Mm.
exploration is incredibly psychologically juicy.
Yeah, I can imagine. I can see how it's I think for me I would describe myself as um a kind of naturally monogamous commitment foe. Doesn't make any sense, but but kind of like I think, and also monogamy is something that I would never demand from someone. I think it's got to be something that comes naturally and it's desired. So this kind of cocoon that naturally emerges sometimes, that's something that makes me feel safe and I
Yeah.
like, but it has to be something that's, natural and wanted because you don't own anyone, so you can't just tell someone you have to live this way. So,
Exactly. There's
mm,
something, I mean, about probably 10-ish% of my clients right now have they go through working with me. My programs are about a year long and they realize over the year like, no, monogamy is the choice I want. This isn't just default.
mm,
I I feel myself. I am monogamous. And then they grapple with, okay, am I looking for someone else to also point monogamous energy at me? Or could
mm,
I do the monopoly thing? Or if I'm looking for someone to point monogamous energy at me, great, now I know that. I
mm,
know that. I know it for sure. I know that that is a bottom line requirement for me. And
mm,
that's what a wonderful thing to know about yourself. Like that, there is nothing but joy
mm,
in the expression of, yes, I know what I need, and what I need is monogamy.
mm,
To do that consciously is very different than just, well, I mean, myself, I was dating someone, I got engaged, I got married, I just defaulted into monogamy. And it was never a great fit for me. I did it successfully, but I wasn't happy and it didn't suit me.
mm,
And that, like, right, what I want for all people is to experience themselves authentically,
mm.
no matter what path that is.
Yeah, because I think also I can see the beauty of someone accepting you in your entirety, even if just feel desire for someone else. And it reminds me of the song George Michael, "Amazing." And he talks about
Mm.
something. I know you're insatiable. My love is still available. Something like that is in the lyrics, and
Yep.
he's talking about allowing his partner to be horny with someone else because he knows he's insatiable and his love's still available. I just thought that was a really interesting lyric. Hmm.
Yeah, and we don't get indoctrinated into the idea of prioritizing our partner's inherent multiplicity, their inherent desire that may shift over time, right? And just because, like, let's say I was attracted to someone and I'm in a monogamous commitment, being attracted to someone doesn't necessarily mean I have to act on it. But one of the things I always ask people who are like, I am monogamous, one of my questions is, great. How are you going to talk about the realities that are being in a human body? You might experience attraction to someone else. How are you going
Mm,
to talk about that in your relationship so that it becomes something that's safe to talk about, so that it's safe
mm,
to have that? Because just because you haven't A-okayed all behaviors doesn't
mm,
mean we can't be totally accepting and actually enjoying each other's wholeness, our
mm.
like, and in whatever form that comes, including insatiability.
I think one of the things I think is kind of cool is to have these alter egos within your relationship and do role plays and go on dates pretending you're strangers and stuff like that. So I think you can kind of like experiment with other person energy and other
Yeah. Oh,
kind of
absolutely.
personality traits without taking the. You can actually experiment to see if that's something you like as well, like going on a date with someone but it's actually your
Right.
partner.
It can also be a great way. So when I'm working with people who are in the beginning stages, especially if they've been in established couplehood for a long time. Many of my clients are 2, 3, even 4 decades together.
Mm-hmm.
The very first thing I will ask them, and not everybody, sometimes people just jump out of the airplane with no parachute like I did, and they do all the crazy things right away. And they find themselves trying to figure out, okay, now what do I do? Because this isn't all very comfortable. But some people take the slow patient path. And at the beginning of the slow patient path, one of the things I would ask is, how is your intimacy right now with this person? Not just your sexual intimacy, but your fantasy intimacy, your imaginal intimacy. Because inviting the imaginal third into your physical intimacy is a great way to start experimenting with, how does jealousy feel in your body? Do you eroticize jealousy, or do you go into a deep depression when jealousy shows up? Do you have the capacity to at least imagine yourself experiencing your partner as wanting other people? And if we stay in that imaginal zone, right, we have the capacity to really develop a sense of where things may be smooth and where they may be more rocky before we've actually gotten out into the terrain. It's not a perfect solution, because if we stay in the imaginal forever, often one partner at least will start to be frustrated about, okay, yep, so we've invited in the other, the capital O other. Wonderful. Now I would like to experience the other in an embodied way. And so there's another threshold to cross. But I think of these, each threshold is valuable and brings valuable information. And just because you cross one threshold doesn't mean you want to cross all of them. Sometimes people find out, yeah, the imaginal third, that's what we were looking for. That rekindled the spark. We brought that other energy into our intimacy and we feel satisfied. That's great. Wonderful. That may be the threshold line for you. It would still behoove you to have a really clear fidelity agreement, to do the needs and wants assessments that allow you to understand, what do you actually need and want out of this relationship as you change over time. So all of that skill building, still really a strong choice, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to go out. Like, not everybody wants to date. Not everybody wants to be on a dating app. Not everybody wants to go to a sex club. That's totally okay. There's a lot of ways to embrace your multiplicity that don't actually involve rampant sexual non-exclusivity. It's just so individual. For many people, in fact, it's primarily about friendship and depth of intimacy, where we just don't draw that line to say, oh, it could never be anything but friendship. That in itself can open up some people's experience.
Wow. So a couple of questions I ask everyone on this podcast. What is the book that changed your life?
Oh, goodness. Probably Revisioning Psychology by James Hillman. I don't think there's a better take on what psychology could be if we re-ensouled it.
Oh, wow. And did you read that in a pivotal moment of your life? How did it impact you?
So I read that for the first time about 3 years after I had shifted from monogamy to non-monogamy. And I was just beginning to study psychology, but I was getting very frustrated because therapy kept being, well, not ineffective. Like, standard issue cognitive behavioral therapy just wasn't addressing the issues I was bringing to my therapists. And Hillman has a wonderful take on how we need to stay with the archetypal realm. We need to stay with the images that come to us. We need to allow ourselves to be souls having an experience. And that was such a necessary move for me, because I had gotten overly rational. I had been overly attached to the idea that if I could just figure things out, that there would be an answer. And Hillman and all of his work, honestly, Myth of Analysis is another great book by him that I read around the same time. They're those kind of books that just, they shake you up and you're like, oh, what if I didn't have to figure it all out? What if I have to stay in the mystery?
You
Which
like
is
the
exactly
messiness.
what I needed.
What about a phrase that you live by, or phrase or quote affirmation that you live by?
There is a quote from Thomas More, one of my mentors. He wrote Care of the Soul and Dark Eros, another couple books I absolutely adore. And he said, conversation is the sex act of the soul.
Oh, I love that.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
I think
It's a
anyone
great
who's a
reminder.
sapiosexual is like, whoa, brilliant.
Exactly. It was a great reminder for me. When I first read it, I was like, oh, that's why I fall in love with people so easily. because the level of intimacy I can experience during conversation is profound. It is profound on the order of a sexual experience, even though it is a very different kind of intimacy.
Wow, I can understand that completely. That's amazing. I love that. It might become mine as well.
It's a really good one. It is.
Okay, so where can people find you? You mentioned you have a podcast as well?
I do. I
Uh,
co-host a podcast with my nesting partner. It's
uh,
called Playing with Fire. It's the two of us
wow.
talking about our experiences in relationship and in non-monogamous relationship. It's really founded on the principles of Jungian psychology and how non-monogamy is one path of individuation, but it's really
Mm,
about all relationship styles and
mm.
structures. So Playing with Fire, you can find it on all the players.
I
And
love,
if
love
you
the name.
are yeah, I mean, I'm a double Leo with an Aries moon, so I'm really
Okay.
playing with fire all the time. And if you are thinking about like maybe this opening thing would be interesting for me, but you're still like nervous about it, you can go take. I have a 10-question quiz at joliquiz.com, joliquiz.com. That 10-question quiz is based out of my doctoral research. It's just designed to help you figure out where you are on the spectrum from hell yeah, let's go. Opening up might be the right next move from you, all the way down to, yeah, no, you need foundations first. Let's not rush anything. I don't want people trying to rush to open when they're not ready. So that quiz can help people get oriented to where they're at. And from there, you'll be introduced to the rest of my work. I host free salons where we're talking about the pillars of non monogamy and how you can do this really well. And all of my jealousy work will also be there. You can find it all in the emails you'll get if you go to joliquiz.com.
Amazing. So are you on social media as well?
I am at Dr. Joli _ Hamilton. And that's where the podcast is my primary. I mostly push the podcast out through my social media. That's Instagram, TikTok, Facebook too, though I'm hardly ever there.
Yeah.
There's just so many things to do these days.
I know, yeah. Got to have priority on your relationship.
Right? Exactly.
Got to be multiple
Exactly.
and polyamorous social
Oh,
media.
I think, yeah, I have an easier time dating 3 people than handling 3 social media accounts for sure.
I can get that. I can understand that. Amazing. It's been so insightful talking to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me, Venus. It's been a pleasure.
The series I'm watching now is Nobody Wants This, Season 2 on Netflix. I already watched and reviewed this last year. I think it was last year for Season 1 of Nobody Wants This. And at first it wasn't love at first sight, but I was intrigued anyway because I love rom-coms. I'm a student of love, as you will know if you listen to this podcast frequently. Also, I am a sex podcaster, and the story follows a sex podcaster who falls in love with a rabbi and all of the challenges they face. So I just love this journey of a podcaster who is rising to fame. And in season 1, she was negotiating a really big deal with Spotify, which I'm not really sure actually ended up happening in the end. But nonetheless, it was really interesting for me to see how much attitudes have changed about sexual wellness content over the years. I've been making content now for 16 years, and I love seeing sexual wellness and talk about dating and sex, etc., become part of the mainstream. And that's not the only reason. So it kind of inspires me myself as a podcaster. But not only that, I love romance in general. And I love seeing this relationship from someone who is obviously talking about sex in public, online, co-creating a relationship with someone who's from a very different background, a Jewish rabbi, so very religious, conservative family, etc., and all the challenges they face. Because it really goes to show, when you have a relationship, it's not just about the couple working as an isolated unit. You have to kind of see if your lifestyles blend together, if your worlds blend together, your friends and family, etc. And the reason why it's called Nobody Wants This is that there's so many things against them. So it's kind of like we're trying to see if love is enough. Is the bond that they have between them enough when they have all of these obstacles, all of these people against them? So that's something that I find quite fascinating. Without going into too much detail about what's happening in season 2, well, I've only got halfway through it. I started watching it last night and there are 10 episodes. I already got to episode 5. They're very short episodes. I think it's about just under half an hour. So it's kind of very, very, very binge worthy. And it seems to be a bit of a repetition on the first series in terms of the relationship forming and these questions of whether she's going to convert to Judaism or not, that kind of thing, and if she's going to fit in with their family and all of that. So I think that's kind of very similar to season 1. But something that came up, which I found interesting, was that the guy said that he didn't want to be discussed on her podcast because, you know, their private life is very private. And that made me, I've had situations like that too, where I've been asked not to share things, or I've just decided myself not to share too much about my personal life. But anyone who listens to this podcast knows that I've shared quite a lot. But I must, I actually have a very clear boundary with myself about what I share. I never share things in real time, just out of respect for what I'm going through. And it's very interesting because I tend to attract very private people into my life, people who are not really that active on social media. So, and that's very different from other sexperts that I interview on here. I know lots and lots of sexperts. When I look at their Instagrams, you can see that they're very much sharing information about their relationships, learnings from their relationships and challenges online. Whereas for me, that doesn't really feel like I don't really want to do that. I want to kind of maybe just share the lessons without going into too much of the circumstances, because I just want to honor, you know, that side of my life, and and just share what I can, but without pointing any fingers or sharing identities, etc. So that's something that I do find interesting about this as well. But yeah, I think it's fantastic to see how you can be a sex blogger, a sex podcaster, and fall in love and have a very, very normal, a very normal relationship, and not be judged. Because I think sometimes I have feared being judged by people about my sexpert status, and part of me has thought, you know, should I tone it down to try and fit in? But after my conversation with Debbie Dobbins, who was the guest in our last episode, I'm very inspired to do the absolute opposite. Debbie Dobbins was the guest from last week, and she's written a book called Your Inner Billionaire. And I had such a great connection with her. She interviewed me for her podcast as well. And I went into, you know, things about my life as a sexpert, my mission, etc. And she was super encouraging. So I realized now that I cannot tone myself down, and I have to kind of really, if anything, just be unapologetically me and just trust that the right people, the right person will come along. And that's all the kind of message of today as well in our affirmations. It's all about trusting in love, trust the process. And just hoping and not hoping. Well, hope is sometimes, well, just knowing that everything is going to be absolutely fine. So if you're interested in rom-coms and a very kind of light-hearted unfolding of a relationship, it's super interesting to watch. And I think even if you're not in the sexual wellness space, I think it's interesting anyway, just to see all these challenges that couples face when they are merging their lives, lifestyles, living together, the speed, momentum, and how people overcome challenges that they face. So that is Nobody Wants This, a new series, well, second season of a series on Netflix. Highly recommended. Now it's time for this episode's meditation. Please don't listen to this while driving or operating machinery. Instead, take a break from whatever you're doing, get comfortable, take a deep breath, and enjoy. I trust myself. I trust my partner. I trust my own discernment. I honor my intuition and my boundaries. I am grounded, calm, and open to connection. I release the need to control outcomes. I trust the process. I trust myself. I trust my partner. I am worthy of love that feels consistent and nourishing. I allow my partner to show me love in their way. I trust that my partner is doing their best with the tools they have. I welcome honesty and vulnerability in our relationship. I trust the process. I trust myself. I trust my partner. I believe in our ability to repair and grow through challenges. I trust that love can deepen over time. I let go of imagined scenarios and return to what is real. My heart and my nervous system can learn to trust love. I trust the process. I trust myself. I trust my partner. I communicate my needs clearly and with kindness. Our relationship deepens as we continue to understand one another. We hold space for each other's emotions without judgment. We are on the same team, even during conflict. I trust the process. I trust myself. I trust my partner. I breathe into the present moment. Right now, I am safe. I choose to respond, not react. We communicate openly and compassionately, even when it feels hard. We choose curiosity over assumption. I trust the process. If you enjoy the affirmations and meditations I share here, you will love the longer versions I've created on Insight Timer, the world's #1 meditation app, available in the App Store and on Google Play. Every Friday, I release a brand new guided practice on topics like love, health, wealth, motivation, abundance, and many more things, all designed to help you relax, recharge, and realign. Just search for Venus O'Hara on Insight Timer or follow the link in the show notes. To find out more about me and my orgasmic lifestyle, visit venusohara.org or follow me on Instagram. The Orgasmic Lifestyle is also on Substack and YouTube, where you can watch all the interviews with our experts. All the links are in the show notes below. Make sure to search for the Orgasmic Lifestyle Podcast by Venus O'Hara in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Google Podcasts, or anywhere podcasts are found. And click subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. Thanks for listening, have an orgasmic week, and make sure every day is a climax.